The plea. The Texas sun sank low over the prairie, painting the sky in fire and gold. Dust swirled around the hooves of a lone horse as it carried its rider toward the edge of a forgotten trail. Elias Carter was a rancher who preferred silence to company, the whisper of cattle grass over the chatter of townsfolk. Folks in Dry Creek said he had a heart as rough as the calluses on his hands, a man burned by loss and made colder by it. But that evening, when he spotted the huddled shapes near the cottonwoods by the creek bed, something stirred inside him he hadn't felt in years. At first, he thought it was just travelers passing through. Then he saw the truth. A woman lay half-conscious in the dirt, her dress torn, her skin pale with fever. Beside her, 2 children knelt, twins, no older than 7 or 8, their faces streaked with tears and dust. They looked so alike, wide brown eyes, tangled hair, thin from hunger, that Elias felt a pang deep in his chest. As he reined in his horse, the twins froze. One clutched the woman's hand, the other sprang to his feet, standing between Elias and their mama like a tiny protector. Their voices shook, but their words struck hard. "Will you kill our mama?" "She's dying," the boy asked, his small fists clenched though his knees trembled. Elias blinked, taken aback. He dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible. "No, son. I don't kill women, nor children. I'm just a rancher passing through." The girl sniffled, her lip quivering. "Everyone hurts her. Please don't." Their mother stirred, moaning weakly. Elias knelt beside her, brushing the dirt from her cheek. Fever burned through her skin. She had wounds on her side, bandaged poorly, bleeding through. She wouldn't last another night without help. The boy's voice broke again. You won't let her die." For the first time in years, Elias felt his guarded heart crack open. He glanced at the twins, then at the frail woman gasping for breath. Memories of his own family, long buried, came rushing back, the wife he had lost to sickness, the child that never had a chance to live. He had sworn never to feel that pain again. But here they were, life and desperation tangled together, asking him for mercy. "No," Elias said, his voice rough. "I'll help her. I swear it." The children exchanged a look, half hope, half fear. Without another word, Elias lifted the frail woman into his arms. She was light, too light, as if hunger had hollowed her out. The twins followed close, never letting her slip from their sight. He mounted his horse carefully, holding her against his chest, while the twins trudged beside him, clinging to the stirrups. It was a long ride back to his ranch, but Elias knew if he left her there in the dust, she'd never see the sunrise. When they reached his ranch house, he laid her gently on the bed that had been empty for far too long. The twins hovered at the door, eyes wide, as if afraid he might still take her from them. Elias lit the lantern, washed his hands, and set to work with the skill of a man who'd spent years patching up wounded ranch hands and hurt animals. "Your mama's strong," he said softly, though he wasn't sure who he was convincing, the children or himself. "We'll give her a fighting chance." As he cleaned and dressed her wounds, the children crept closer. The boy clutched his sleeve suddenly, whispering, "Don't let her go. Please, mister. She's all we got." Elias paused, meeting those tear-filled eyes. For a long moment, the silence of the ranch house pressed down around them. Then he laid a hand over the boys and gave a firm nod. "She ain't going anywhere tonight. Not while I'm here." And for the first time in years, Elias Carter, the rancher who had sworn never to open his heart again, felt the weight of a promise he intended to keep. Healing and trust. Morning came slowly, with golden light seeping through the ranch house windows. The air smelled faintly of coffee and wood smoke. For Elias Carter, it was just another dawn on the Carter ranch, or it should have been. But this morning was different. The bed in the spare room was no longer empty. A fragile woman lay breathing shallowly beneath the quilt he had tucked around her, and 2 children sat curled up together on the floor beside her, their small hands linked as if holding each other was the only way to stay strong. Elias stood in the doorway, hat in hand, studying them with a heaviness in his chest. He hadn't heard children's laughter, or crying, in this house in nearly a decade. The silence of loss had been his only company. But now, the walls seemed to hum with life again, tentative and uncertain. The boy noticed him first. He stiffened, then scrambled to his feet, standing protectively in front of his mama again. His sister clung to his sleeve. "She's still breathing," Elias said, his voice low but steady. "Fever broke some in the night." The girl's eyes brimmed with relief. "She's gonna live." Elias crouched so he wasn't towering over them. "She's not out of the woods yet. But I'll do everything I can. That's a promise." The boy studied him for a long moment, then gave a tiny nod, as if daring to trust him. Elias spent the day tending her wounds. He boiled water, ground herbs, and used old remedies his grandmother had once taught him. The woman's fever rose and fell like a stormy tide, but every time she moaned or stirred, the children rushed to her side, whispering comforts in voices too tender for their years. By afternoon, she finally opened her eyes. They were soft hazel, clouded with confusion. She blinked at the wooden ceiling, then turned her head slightly toward Elias. Where am I?" Her voice was little more than a whisper. "My ranch," Elias replied simply. "Found you by the creek yesterday. You were in bad shape." Her gaze flicked to her children, who immediately pressed to her side. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she drew them close. "Thank God you're safe." The boy spoke up quickly. "He didn't hurt us, Mama. He helped." Elias felt her eyes settle on him then, tired, wary, but grateful too. "You saved us." He cleared his throat, suddenly uneasy under her gaze. "Just did what needed doing. You've still got a fight ahead, but you'll make it if you rest." Her lips trembled, and she mouthed words he almost didn't catch. "Thank you." Days passed. The ranch that had once echoed only with the creak of floorboards and the lowing of cattle now held new sounds: soft laughter, quiet footsteps, the gentle hum of children trying to help where they could. The twins, whose names Elias finally learned, Samuel and Sarah, followed him everywhere. They asked questions about the horses, the cattle, even the squeaky windmill. At first Elias grunted short replies, unused to company. But soon he found himself answering in full sentences, even showing them how to brush the old mare or gather eggs from the henhouse. One evening, Sarah shyly offered him a wildflower she had picked by the fence. "For helping Mama." Elias stared at the tiny bloom resting in his calloused palm. It had been years since anyone had given him such a simple kindness. He tucked it carefully into his vest pocket, unable to speak. Inside the house, their mother grew stronger. Her name was Clara. Each day she could sit up a little longer, her cheeks regaining color. Though her body bore scars of hardship, there was a quiet dignity in the way she held herself. She sewed up the torn hem of her dress with practiced hands, thanking Elias for every small kindness he gave. One evening, as Elias brought her a bowl of broth, Clara's voice stopped him. "Why are you doing this for us?" He paused, setting the bowl on the nightstand. "Because you needed help." Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to find something beneath the roughness of his beard and the lines of old grief. "Most men wouldn't have stopped. Not out here." Elias shifted uncomfortably. "I ain't most men." A small smile touched her lips, the first he'd seen. "No, you're not." The warmth in her eyes unsettled him, stirring something he thought had long ago died. He turned away, pretending to busy himself with the fire. But not everything was peaceful. Word of Clara and her twins spread quickly through town. Elias heard the whispers when he rode in for supplies, strangers asking where she'd come from, some muttering she must be trouble if she'd been found half dead on the prairie. A drifter, a runaway, a burden. When Elias returned home, he found Clara staring out the window, worry etched in her face. "You shouldn't keep us here," she said quietly, not turning to face him. "The townsfolk will talk. I don't want to bring shame on you." Elias frowned. "Let him talk. Ain't their business." Her hands twisted in her lap. "But we've already taken too much. Your food, your roof. I can work, once I'm stronger. Earn our keep." "You don't owe me a damn thing," Elias said gruffly. Then, softer, "You're safe here. That's all that matters." Clara looked at him then, eyes shining with unshed tears. "Safe," she whispered, as if the word was foreign on her tongue. For a moment their gazes locked, her gratitude, his unspoken longing, the fragile bond that had begun to grow between them. Elias looked away first, his heart thundering in a way he hadn't felt in years. That night, as the twins drifted to sleep by the hearth, Elias sat on the porch staring at the stars. He told himself he was only helping them out of duty, out of kindness. But deep down, he knew the truth. The woman inside, Clara, and her children had already begun to heal wounds far deeper than the ones he had bandaged. And whether he liked it or not, his lonely ranch no longer felt like his alone. It felt like the beginnings of a home. Love's choice. The prairie had a way of carrying whispers, whether it was the sigh of wind through the grass or the talk that spread from town to ranch. Elias Carter thought he could keep Clara and her twins safe, tucked away on his land, but trouble had a way of sniffing out the weak, and Clara had enemies she hadn't spoken of. It began on a gray morning. Clara was strong enough now to rise from bed and help knead bread, her hands moving slowly but steadily. Sarah hummed as she set the table, while Samuel darted in and out of the house with firewood. Elias watched them quietly, leaning on the doorway, his chest tight with something he couldn't quite name. The sight of Clara smiling faintly at her children, of their laughter filling the kitchen, made the ranch house glow in a way it hadn't in years. But peace is fragile. By noon, dust rose on the horizon. Elias's sharp eyes caught the silhouette of 3 riders approaching. His gut tightened. These weren't neighbors or friendly ranch hands. They rode with the careless swagger of men looking for trouble. Clara froze when she glimpsed them from the window. Her face drained of color. "No," she whispered, gripping the table for support. "Not them. They've found us." Elias stepped forward. "Who are they?" Her lips trembled. "Men I ran from. After my husband died, they took everything, our land, our home. When I refused to marry one of them, they swore I wouldn't survive out here." Her voice broke. "I tried to keep ahead of them, but—" The pounding of hooves cut her off. Elias's jaw hardened. He moved swiftly, handing Samuel a rifle far too big for the boy's arms. "Take your sister and stay in the cellar. Don't open that door till I say." "But—" Samuel's eyes widened with fear. "Do as I say, son," Elias barked, then softened. "I'll keep your mama safe." The twins clung to Clara, but she kissed their foreheads, urging them toward the cellar hatch. Her eyes found Elias's as the children disappeared below. "Why risk yourself for us?" she asked, voice raw. He didn't answer with words. He only touched her hand, rough, calloused, steady. It was enough. The riders reined in at the front yard, their horses kicking up dirt. The leader, a broad man with a cruel smile, tipped his hat mockingly. "Well, well. Thought you could hide, Clara." His eyes flicked to Elias. "And who's this?" "Your new protector." Elias stepped forward, shotgun resting easy in his arms. "Name's Carter. This is my land. You're not welcome here." The man sneered. "That woman belongs to me." Elias's voice was calm, but it carried iron. "She belongs to no man. And you're leaving." The tension cracked like lightning. One of the riders reached for his revolver, but Elias fired first, the blast echoing across the plains. The man tumbled from his horse. Chaos erupted. Bullets sang. Horses screamed. Clara crouched inside the doorway, praying with trembling hands. She wanted to shut her eyes, but she couldn't. Elias stood tall in the yard, every movement fierce and sure, as though he had been waiting for this fight all his life. It was over faster than it began. 2 of the men fled, their courage gone. The leader lay sprawled in the dust, groaning, his weapon kicked away by Elias's boot. Elias leveled his shotgun. But then he hesitated. He wasn't a killer unless forced. He glanced back toward the house, toward Clara's wide, frightened eyes watching him. Slowly, he lowered the gun. "Get off my land," he growled. "If I see you again, you won't walk away." The man spat, but fear won over pride. He staggered to his horse and rode off, vanishing into the horizon. Silence fell heavy after the storm. Clara stumbled from the house, her knees weak. You could have been killed." Elias wiped sweat from his brow, breathing hard. "Wouldn't be the first time I've come close." Her eyes filled with tears. She reached for him, then stopped, trembling. "Why do this for me, Elias? You don't even know me." He stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "I know enough. You're strong. You fought to keep your children alive. That's all a man needs to know." She stared at him, searching, her heart pounding in her chest. "I'm no good for you. Folks in town already whisper. You deserve better than a broken woman with nothing to her name." Elias's hand lifted, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. His touch was gentle, reverent. "You're wrong. You're exactly what I need. This ranch has been empty too long. My heart's been empty too long." Clara's breath hitched. Tears slid down her cheeks, but this time they weren't only from fear, they were from hope. "Elias." The cellar door creaked open then, and Samuel and Sarah ran out, crying with relief as they threw themselves at their mother. Clara knelt, hugging them tight, whispering promises of safety. The boy looked up at Elias, eyes shining. "You saved us." And then, hesitant but sure, he added, "Pa." The single word struck Elias harder than any bullet could have. His throat tightened, and for a moment he couldn't speak. He just laid a hand on Samuel's shoulder, then Sarah's, pulling them gently into the circle of their mother's arms. Clara looked up at him through tears, her smile trembling but radiant. In that moment, words weren't needed. The choice had already been made. The days that followed were different. The ranch no longer felt lonely, but alive. Clara tended the garden, laughter on her lips as Sarah helped chase the chickens. Samuel rode at Elias's side, eager to learn the work of the land. Evenings were filled with stories by the fire, and sometimes, in the quiet of night, Elias felt Clara's hand slip into his, soft, warm, certain. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of rose and gold, Elias stood with Clara on the porch. The twins chased each other in the yard, their laughter echoing. Clara leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder. "We're safe now," she whispered. Elias wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. "You're home now." And for the first time in many years, Elias Carter wasn't just a lonely rancher tending to an empty land. He was a husband in the making, a father in truth, and a man who had finally found the family he never dared hope for.